Hello and welcome to another presentation from Four Corners Education. This is again topic 2, ecosystems and ecology, and we're going to concentrate on topic 2.2, communities and ecosystems. However, we're going to break this up into a couple of parts, so we're going to do it section by section. So, the main ideas. Species interact with their environment, and this results in energy and nutrient flow. Photosynthesis and respiration play a significant role in the flow of energy in communities, and the feeding relationships of species in a system can be modelled using food chains, food webs and ecological pyramids. Okay, like I said, we're going to split this up and do this in a couple of sections. So, in this presentation, we're really mainly going to concentrate on these ideas of interactions of species with their environment and the resulting energy and nutrient flows, and how photosynthesis and respiration play a significant role in these flows of energy. But however, the first thing we're going to do, if you remember, this topic is topic 2.2, communities and ecosystems. So what is a community? Okay, so there's a little short video of an ecological community. You can see there are various populations there. If you look quite closely, you can actually see there's little snails all over all of the little water plants. So you've got aquatic algae, seaweeds, you've got aquatic plants that produce oxygen inside the water, and you've also got a snail population living on them, and there are fish swimming around there, there's shells, etc. So this idea is a group of populations, and remember, we've looked at what populations are before in topic 2.1. Yeah, interacting with each other in a common habitat. And again, in topic 2.1, we actually worked out what a habitat was. So let's have a little bit of a depth to look at this. So again, another community. This is a community of organisms that you'd actually find in a woodland, in Atlantic temperate woodland in the UK. And there are bluebells, there's ferns, there's mosses, there's lichen, there are the oak tree itself. And so their environment is this woodland community. And as you can see, it's actually quite damp there. This picture was taken just after it had been raining, so they're interacting with the environment, the weather, the abiotic conditions. And again, we can sort of summarize this in terms of simple flow diagram. So an ecosystem, well, all an ecosystem is the community and its abiotic environment. Remember, interactions between the community themselves are biotic interactions, but they also interact with their abiotic environment, and all these interactions together make up the ecosystem. So it's a community and the physical environment with which it interacts. And in that little diagram at the bottom, what I've tried to illustrate is that these are sort of the ecosystem includes both of these, the physical environment and the community, and they interact backwards and forwards with each other. Okay, so let's move this a little bit of a step further and start thinking about the energy inside an ecosystem. So the starting point for all energy in any ecosystem is the sun. And again, as we've looked at in topic 2.1, the quality of sunlight, the quality of energy coming in from the atmosphere is actually different in different parts of the globe. It's spread much further nearer the poles than it is towards the equator. So if the starting point for all energy in the ecosystem is the sun, therefore it's only organisms that can utilize this energy that have the immediate direct bearing on all of the other energy in ecosystems. So only organisms that can photosynthesize can obtain their energy directly from the sun. There are some organisms that can use chemicals directly, and they're called chemoautotrophs. But there aren't many species that can do that, and most of them are found very, very deep in the oceans. So let's have a look at this relationship between photosynthesis and respiration in this ecosystem. So photosynthesis, let's have a look at this first. Well, first of all, as in all systems, photosynthesis involves a process of inputs, there's processes involved, and there's outputs. And there's quite a detailed diagram there of all of the components that would make up photosynthesis inside a plant. In ESS, you don't need an understanding to the depth of the understanding that you would need, say, for biology within Group 4. However, I thought it would be quite nice to actually think about this as the fact that we're looking at this in the big system within the ecosystem, but we can break this down into much smaller systems. So inside the leaf of the plant itself, there's an entire system in operation that's performing photosynthesis. So what are the inputs? Well, we have an input of sunlight, and we have an input of carbon dioxide, and we also have an input of water. So sunlight obviously is coming from the sun, carbon dioxide comes from the atmosphere, and water in the main comes from the soil. However, there are some plants with aerial roots that can actually capture moisture from the air around them. Most of those plants live in the tropics. And the process is itself. So the process is, again, we don't need the detail of this, but I thought I'd include it just out of interest as much as anything. The process of photosynthesis, chlorophyll traps sunlight, and it uses that energy to split water molecules. And these then combined with hydrogen that's been split out of carbon dioxide. Yeah, it combines the hydrogen from the water molecules with the carbon dioxide, and that directly leads to our outputs. And the output in this case is glucose. Yeah, everybody really should have covered this at least in grade 9 or grade 10 in some way, so you understand the basic reactions that are happening. Yeah, so, and this glucose is used as the energy source by plants. Yeah, oxygen that is released in the process is then released back to the atmosphere. So we have this process of inputs, an actual process itself in photosynthesis, and outputs. So we can think of it in terms of flow diagrams. So very, very simple diagram again that just explains it. We've got inputs of sunlight, carbon dioxide, water. Our process is photosynthesis, and our outputs are glucose and oxygen. If you remember going back to topic 1, I introduced the idea of these Odum diagrams, energies diagrams that Howard Odum started using in the 1950s, and they're quite a nice way to actually link what's happening. They're based on diagrams from engineering, and we can use them to actually model. We can create models of these little systems that help to inform people. So what happens inside photosynthesis is a transformation. We have the transformation of light energy to stored chemical energy. And that transformation happens in photosynthesis. That the light energy is captured in photosynthesis through what happens in the chloroplast, the splitting of water and the combination with carbon dioxide to produce glucose. That glucose eventually leads to the laying down of biomass, the development of the organism itself, the development of the plant. That's our stored energy. And if you think about that, it makes sense. You have a salad, you eat lettuce. You're eating lettuce to get the energy out of it. But that energy is stored in the plant in the form of biomass. So again, let's just recap on this. What does photosynthesis really do? Well, it powers the entire ecosystem. That's the first thing it does. It's the starting point for all energy in the ecosystem. It also provides the building blocks to produce all other biological molecules. All of the molecules that we are made from, ultimately their starting point is glucose that's produced in plants. So that's the idea, biological molecules, the molecules that make up organisms. So inside this, again, we've got the basic diagram. Carbon dioxide plus water gets transformed into glucose and oxygen. And in terms of this biological molecules, it's the glucose that's important. So we can sort of summarize this. Photosynthesis produces raw materials for producing biomass, and this becomes the energy source for all other organisms. Again, if you think about it, every organism is directly linked back to the first organism that ate plant material, so therefore it's linked back to the energy that's captured in sunlight captured from sunlight during photosynthesis. So if we think about this in terms of the total energy in any ecosystem that's available for all the organisms totally depends on the amount of photosynthesis that ecosystem can perform. Therefore, if you remember back to topic 2.1 when we looked at the Arctic ecosystem, there's very, very low levels of light energy. So therefore, they don't have a high productivity, the ability to put and lay down biomass. So let's bring in some slightly more technical terms from this, some slightly more environmental systems terms. So producers, the plants, are the starting point for all of the energy in the ecosystem. So all energy that we have inside our ecosystem starts off with plants. But plants are part of the process. Okay, that's an introduction to the role of photosynthesis. But photosynthesis on itself is only the building blocks. It only provides these building blocks of both an energy supply in the terms of biomass and the molecules for making new biomolecules.